How you doing? Today we're covering Vaesen by Free League. Hopefully I can do that justice there. It is an odd, awesome game. I was kind of like unsure about it at the start, and now I can't wait to actually run it. It's super, super cool. So we're trying a new format here because I don't tend to do the big books justice. So this is going to be an overview, which will give you the idea of if you want to run it, give you an idea of actually if you do want to run it. I'm also going to do a separate video, which is going to be a breakdown of the actual mechanics in detail, because I don't want it to be too long. So let's switch across here. Look, fancy. So Vaesen is a Nordic horror role-playing game, which is a bit odd, but odd can be really cool. And this is an example of how it can be cool. So it is like a dark fantasy RPG, and it's set in 19th century Scandinavia. It is, what makes it kind of cool is the setting, although it was the setting that almost put me off initially at the start. So the premise is that the players are investigators, and they are investigating supernatural creatures called Vaesen, which are kind of based on folklore, which sounds a bit cutesy, but it's the dark side of folklore. And it's a horror mystery game, really driven by kind of like these ancient folklores. And there are expansions which allow you to play it in different countries, which is really, really cool. And I'm going to cover them in another video. But, come on, you. Why is that not working? Yeah, so it's set in mythic Scandinavia, 19th century Scandinavia, but it's like an alternate Scandinavia. So it's the Industrial Revolution has happened, and it's disrupted life. So for generations and generations, people in the countryside and rural life have kind of like Vaesen have lived together without too much issue. But industrialization has changed the entire world, and things have got a bit rough. It's dark, dangerous, gritty. And the Vaesens now have kind of turned aggressive in many ways. And when I say aggressive, not just little bits aggressive, horrendously aggressive in cases. And it's this kind of mixture of historical events and mythical folklore and modernity encroaching on the natural world. And I have to say, it is dark as hell. And I mean, it's got real dark undertones. So your players are just normal kind of like characters. They've got different archetypes. But what makes them kind of different is they have the sight. So the sight is they can see Vaesen. Now, normally Vaesen can only be seen when you want to see them or when they want you to be seen. But some people have had horrific things happen to them, which is you. And what that means is then you get to see Vaesen that other people can't. But also it's a very wary thing because you're in 19th century, and like telling people you can see these little things in the corners, funny farm. So all the players have this backstory, which is traumatized, which they've been traumatized in some way, and they have dark secrets and all kinds of cool things that kind of help you build this out better. And you have like 10 archetypes to choose from, and they are like normal things but offer a unique role in the party. So you've got an academic, a doctor, a hunter, an occultist, officer, priest, private investigator, servant, vagabond, writer, which is all kind of like cool stuff. And there's also nice things in the book which help you like just adapt the setting. It doesn't have to be the traditional setting where women have this really low role in society and that side of stuff. Or you can play into that. It's up to yourselves. But you're also a member of this unique organization called the Society. And the Society is a select group of people that kind of have been investigating Vaesen for years. And the Society almost collapsed 10 years ago. Nobody really knows what happens. And you are the first people rebuilding this, which is kind of super cool. And as you reestablish this in Uppsala, you've it has its own kind of undertones to it as well, which is really, really great. And your mission, and this is the nice thing, is everybody who is part of the Society have a similar idea. Although their motivations will be different, you're all pulling on the same page, which is to find out what's going on with Vaesen, investigate them. And they're not all terrible. Sometimes, which is a really good thing. And you're not kind of like, your job isn't to kill them. Although you might be doing that, you're not going to beat them in a fight. So it's almost like you're trying to unwrap what the problems are and see if you can fix them as well in certain cases. Loads and loads of campaign fodder in here, which is really cool. And it's nice and loose, the setting. So it's not fixed. This is the way it is. You get to adapt it, and you players get to adapt it at the table. Character sheet's freaking beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. And the dice system is the Year Zero engine, which I've covered before. It's a fantastic system. You roll a bunch of d6s, and if you get a 6, it's a success. It's been simplified for this game, and I love what they've done specifically for this game and setting. So things like Forbidden Lands, which I adore, you have this almost resource management area to it. Your weapons can get broken. You get broken in different ways. It's really, really cool for that setting. Same with Mutant Year Zero. But in this, resource management isn't your key. So it strips out all of that side of stuff, which is really good, and just gets to the investigative side. The main thing about conflict resolution is that you have these stats. So you have attributes and you have skills. You will have, depending on your age, you will have a certain amount of points to spend in attributes and a certain amount of points to spend in skills. And you roll them in order to do a skill check. So if you had, for example, what we got, like logic. So if you had a 3 in logic and a 2 in vigilance, you'd roll 5 dice. And if there's a 6, you succeed. Sometimes things will be a little bit harder and you might need 2 sixes. But yeah, generally it's a 6 and you succeed. If you get extra 6s, each of your skills lets you do extra cool stuff. So there is benefit in getting more 6s. And you can help people and all that kind of stuff. But again, this isn't going to be a deep dive into the mechanics. It's just, for this moment, it's a much more simplified version of probably the easiest version I've seen to run of the D6 of the Mutant Year Zero or the Year Zero engine, which is kind of cool. And where are we here? Where did we go? Yeah, success or failure. 1 or more 6s count as a success. And failing can lead to complications. It's not failure is you just don't get to do it. Generally, something happens, which is a good thing. But failure is not failure. You get to push rolls in this, like other Year Zero games. So that means if you fail, you can choose to push your rolls. You re-roll everything apart from any 6s, because some cases you might want extra 6s. But you re-roll all your dice and you take a condition. And the nice thing about conditions is they are the player's choices. You have 2 physical attributes and 2 mental attributes. So physical is physique and precision, and mental is logic and empathy. If you fail a roll that's related to a physical attribute, you take a physical condition, but the players get to decide what condition it is. It could be exhausted, battered, wounded, or if it's a mental condition, it could be frightened, hopeless, or broken. Now, each condition you take ends up you getting a -1 or 1 less dice you roll for anything to do with them attributes. So, for example, if you were frightened, as long as you have that condition, any mental rolls you're going to be making, you're going to be reducing your dice pool by 1. So it's always a choice. You're always kind of like figuring out when to do this, which is cool. And yeah, and that's a nice thing about this. And there's loads of things in this game where the players get input on what happens, because it really is a thing about a joint fiction that you're working on together. Now, here are kind of like some examples of a couple of the book is stunningly beautiful. I've said it a few times, but it is actually one of my favorite books that I now own. And I read the PDF, and the PDF was super cool, and it made me want to run it, the PDF. But then once I got the book, I just wanted to read it slowly and take my time with it. So yeah. So here's a couple of examples of the kind of like archetypes you can play. There's a few differences in them. So when you look at them, you can see that you've got a main attribute, which is empathy. Your main attribute, when you're picking your putting stats in your attributes, you can normally do 4, but for your main attribute, you can do 5. So it means you're going to be naturally better than most people in that area. You have a main skill. Normally, when you're distributing your points among skills, you can put 2 in, a maximum of 2, but for your main skill, you can put 3 in it. So you can be absolutely smashing it in one area. And then you also have kind of like resources, which is like a meta currency for buying stuff, which again, I really, really like. You're not messing with the little pennies in this game, because it's not about that kind of thing. You also have talents. So again, you get to pick there's 3 talents there. You get to pick one of them that only your archetype can have. There's other talents that everybody can pick from as you build the games. And the way it works with this as well is XP and upgrading. It's not leveled games. At the end of every session, you get asked a bunch of questions. Did you participate in the session? You get 1 XP. You get 1 XP for each of these, answering yes to each of these questions. Did you confront any Vaesen? Did you identify any previously unknown Vaesen? Were you affected by your dark secret? Which again is superb campaign fodder, and it gives you examples of things that you can use as your dark secrets. Did you take risks to protect other people? Did you learn anything? And again, it's open to kind of like interpretation. But it really is, this game is encouraging you all to get together to tell a story, and it's not competitive in that kind of. It's not kind of a fight between GMs and players in any shape or form. Did you develop something in your headquarters? Did you perform an extraordinary action? Right, and we'll speak about headquarters in a second. So all of that stuff is awesome, and you get 1 XP for each. When you get 5 XP, you can buy an advance. An advance either gives you a new talent, or you can add one to one of your skills. So you're constantly getting better as you go through the mysteries. So here's an example of a few talents. We have, this is for the Vagabond, which was on the previous page. Hobo tricks. He gets +2 to, or they get +2 to stealth when trying to hide yourself from objects or hide yourself or an object from a wealthy human. Suspicious. Ignore mental conditions when making vigilance tests. Well-traveled. This is the idea that each of them will have 3 of these kind of like talents, but you also then got general talents that you can pick up as you get your advances. So here's again a few examples. 9 lives. When rolling for a critical injury, you may decide which of the dice represents the 10s and which represents 0. So this is something I didn't cover and I should have done. When we were talking about in fact, let me jump back here. It's probably the best bet. It's about 6. Yeah, okay. So when we were talking here about the conditions, what happens is once you take 3 conditions of a type, so 3 physical conditions, you then become broken. Broken means you're basically busted. You can do nothing. When you're broken, you'll end up rolling on a critical injury table. There's one for mental and one for physical, and you can end up dying. You can end up loads of stuff. You don't tend to die instantly. People can impact stuff there, but it means you can end up picking conditions, and you can actually end up getting some benefits like sight and stuff like that. So yeah, so with things like, let me go back. Yeah, so with things like 9 lives, you're rolling 2d6s. Being able to pick which one was which can make a massive impact. You can get pets. You can become a pugilist where you're doing more damage when you're fighting bare fists. I love the idea of a 19th century pugilist. So there's there's a bunch of these which you can do, but again, they're not the focus of the game. The focus of the game is the developing the society and figuring out about Vaesen, which brings us on to Castle. I'm not doing it, but Castle Gillenkreutz. I don't know. What Freely do amazing is one of the other things they do that I love is they give you a base. This isn't, they've done it in Mutant Year Zero. They do it in Forbidden Lands. This is no different. As a member of the society, you've inherited this old crap castle if there is such a thing, but it's all broken down. And what you get to do is you get to unlock and repair bits of the castle as you go along. So you can unlock an armory or an infirmary, or you can hire personnel and that kind of stuff. Each of these things unlocks different areas for you. So again, like the XP, you get asked questions. Did you play at least one scene at the headquarter? Did you encounter a new type of Vaesen? Did you visit a place of magic? Were you subject to magic? Did you bring occult books or other important items back to the headquarters? Did you make important contacts? Was the official mystery particularly difficult or epic? Did you solve the mystery? So all of these give you development points for your for the castle, and you can then kind of like add bits and bobs to the castle, like a library, or you could hire people to do certain stuff. And all of these then give you extra bonuses when you're prepping for missions and that kind of stuff. So you're developing this kind of like group character together, which is awesome. But what's also really, really cool is every time you upgrade, there'll be a cost of the upgrade. For every upgrade point you spend, the GM secretly rolls a bunch of D6s, one for each. And if there's a 6, then something dodgy happens to your home. So all of this is just campaign fodder, which is freaking awesome. So, like, for example, you like a journalist intent on exposing player characters' secrets at any cost. You now have this person in play. Or a relative wants one of the players committed to the mental asylum. Or a Vaesen might come in and start to live in the headquarters. So there's all kinds of weird stuff. And the headquarter becomes an actual character in your game as well that people really care about. So, going on to the visual representation. The game is beautiful. Like I've said it beforehand, it's gorgeous. The art style is haunting. Like it's just really, really gorgeous art style. You've seen some of it through here. I've got another picture coming up, but it's just a joy to read. The design, the book layout is clear. It's got really helpful examples for GMs and stuff like that, and for new players all the way through it. And it does a really good job at building kind of like a like the actual setting through reading it, as well as giving tips and like really strong direction on how to run the game. It is not a manual. It's designed to be read, not referenced. Now, I've seen lots of people complain about this, and I can understand it. But it is a joy to read. And I don't think you can have both of them. For example, I really love Old School Essentials. I don't like the game. I don't want to play the game. But as a book and the layout, I read it often. I think it's a masterpiece in layout and finding stuff. It's probably the best thing I've read for that. But it didn't give me the same joy to read. It would be much better for running, but not the same joy to read. And I think freely lean on the other side of stuff. Now, there's easy fixes, in my opinion. And I'll probably speak about that at the end. But there's stuff you can download that would summarize the rules. Finding a specific rule isn't always easy. But when you read the rules, they make sense. I actually don't think you need to find them that often. And the mood, it is dark, mysterious, steeped in folklore, and it's perfect for immersion. It got me so interested. In fact, I'll cover this bit. Yeah, but like I'm certainly going to run a campaign of this. There's something else I really need to show you as well. So let me see if I can jump back to me. This is the Dungeon Master's Guide. 320 pages. This is Vaesen. 220 pages. And let me see if I can do this justice. Okay, Vaesen is a significantly thicker book than the one that is 100 pages bigger. Significantly. And I think this is what you get when you have a company that genuinely cares about the products they give you. Genuinely want to produce the very best they can at a decent price point, because it is not anywhere near crazy money. And when I say it's a joy to read, I never really fully got the whole having something gorgeous in your hand. I 100% get it now. I've loved nearly all their books, or I have loved everything that I've read from them so far. But just reading books like this with the paper so thick, and it feels authentic for the time that you're reading it in. It feels like you're reading something from that time. It's like super cool. So overall, it knocks it out of the park for me in this area. What else we got? Let me come back. Right. Did I miss something there? No. Okay. The artwork, gorgeous. Really, there's a combination of the stuff that you've seen here, which is almost like pencil drawings, and then there's this other stuff which really, really feels great for the time. It's another thing. It's looking at my shelves. This made me look at my shelves and run through books, and it's made me realize I have so many things on my shelves that I desperately want to run, and this is nearly at the front of the list. So it's pushing me in the direction to now start running campaigns. And I think I'm going to start streaming some campaigns online and running small kind of like 12 session things, because these books are like, there's just so many cool things. And if I don't start running them, I won't. And this book pushed me to want to do that, which is really kind of powerful. So I'm going to try and be a little bit more critical of some of the books that I read, because I think there's always pros and cons for them. So this is the pros for Vaesen. It's rich. The setting is immersive. It's based on folklore, and it's so different to almost anything I've read. It's not like cosmic horror. It's something that most people have a link to it somewhere, because they understand what these things were, which is really great. Really great. It focuses on investigation and narrative-driven gameplay. It stripped down the Year Zero engine, which I think has been really good changes for this particular type of game. The artwork is great. And I really like the design, because it was such fun to read. And I think you'd strip that away if you did it in a different format. The GM section is really, really good. There is a really, really great section on how to build mysteries. It's got an example mystery in the back of it, which is really, really cool. And it's throughout the book, these little nuggets of how to run the game and how to not let the story stall. But in particular, the area for designing mysteries, I think, is absolutely brilliant. Did I mention it's beautiful? I mean, it's just gorgeous. And it includes an adventure at the back, which I think is also an awesome thing. You can just get up and running. And I've been reading some of the other adventures from other authors, and I really do enjoy them. The cons. It's niche. Now, I think this is both a pro and a con. Its niche appeal due to its cultural themes. It's Scandinavian folklore. Now, there is Mythic Britain on Ireland, which I've got, and I'm going to use to run a campaign at home for my kids. My kids are like 18 plus, and they're dark as hell, so it works with this. Yeah. So, and I thought that was how I was going to run it. But the more I read the original book and the adventures based in Scandinavia, the more I thought, actually, I really want to run it here as well. The con is it kind of put me off at the start. And I know it would probably put off potential players that once they get started, they would really love it. Could be better laid out. So this is kind of the to and fro with Free League books. They opt on beautiful things to read and hold. But sometimes there's a sacrifice on when you're at the table looking up stuff. Now, I personally think there's an easy fix for this. I think if they just took the inside covers, 2 inside covers, and did rule summaries on both of them, it would become an amazing asset for at the table. Instead of having a DM screen, which I don't like, you could just, that would make referencing and finding everything so much easier. It would be a super easy fix, and it would give them the very best of both worlds. In the time being, what I'd be doing is there's some rule summaries online. I'd be downloading them and having one of those at the table. But I definitely think that small fix, if you watch this Free League, take this on board. With your games, if you made better use of the inside covers like Old School Essentials does, that one thing would mean you could keep the tone, keep the joy of reading the book, but also add the extra bit of functionality and upgrade it. I just think it would rock. Adventures are a joy to read, but they're not necessarily the best to run. Okay, now this isn't knocking the adventures. For me, it really works. So I'll explain what I mean. And I'm comparing it again to Old School Essentials. When you look at an Old School Essentials adventure, running it at the table is a piece, I was going to say swear, but I'm trying to not do that. It is really easy. It's really easy because the way it's laid out, the game develops at the table. But although I love Old School Essentials adventures, reading them doesn't bring me the same joy as reading one of these adventures. I don't get the full picture. In fact, many times I don't really know what's going on with their adventures until I'm at the table. Now, I kind of like that in many ways because I get to figure out what's happening. Maybe that's the way it's meant to be. Maybe it's not, and it's just the way I am. But it's almost like we discover what's happening at the table, which is kind of cool. But for reading them, they're not as good. With this, I think this one isn't so bad, but there's a little bit, there's too much text for me to run at the table, but there's the perfect amount of text to read. Now, that would have been more of an issue in the past, but generally I would have just made notes and ran it off using my notes. Now, I would just be throwing the entire adventure into ChatGPT, getting it to summarize it in the style that I like. And I might actually do a video on that. That fits better for running the table. And that way I would have the best of both worlds without a huge amount of work. So, and the game for me is perfect for players who love story-heavy games. It's not necessarily about rolling loads and loads of dice. It's about figuring out what's going on, which I really love. It would I think the game's gorgeous, not just physically, but the entire setting, and it's pushed me to want to run it. It actually got me researching my own hometown in the 19th century and taking pictures from it, or getting pictures and maps from it to run a game at our table, because we've still got like 19th century buildings around here, and and run it throughout the island of Ireland, and I think it would be amazing, and that's what we're going to do in our home game. So it got me researching 19th century Ireland, which is crazy, and I just think it will be awesome to do it. But also at the same time, after getting stuck, because I was certain that was the only way I was going to read it, after reading this, the book and the setting and kind of like the Scandinavian myths and the country at the time, it's made me really want to run it there. So I think it's an awesome game. If you haven't got this by now, 100% I would say buy it. I'll stick a link below to the Free League, or where you can pick it up the PDFs on drive-through and like get the book up at Free League. It's just it rocks. There's a Kickstarter they're about to start, which is going to be more adventures coming out. I think it's coming up, kicking off at Halloween. I'll try and stick a link to that as well. But yeah, game rocks. This is meant to be a really short summary, and it's freaking 30 minutes long. Anyway, I'll be doing a video on, if you're still here, on the breaking down the play. I hope you enjoyed this, and cool. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.